The neon glow of station lights flickered over the crowded bar, casting long shadows across stained countertops and flickering holoscreens. The scent of aged whiskey and engine grease mingled in the air, a familiar blend of vices and routine. Henry Carter wiped down a glass with methodical precision, his movements slow, deliberate. Years had taught him patience, both in war and in tending drinks for those looking to forget. The patrons of Orion's Rest were a mixed lot. Traders nursing regrets, off-duty miners drowning exhaustion, and the occasional enforcer watching from the corners. It was a place of unspoken rules and unspoken pasts, and Henry liked it that way. For 5 years, he had built a life away from war, away from bloodshed. His hands, once calloused by weapons, now gripped bottles and credits. A fair trade, he had thought. He didn't notice the new arrivals at first. They moved like ghosts, their presence a ripple in the normal ebb of the bar's energy. 3 of them. Subtle but wrong. The way they watched him, not the way desperate men eyed their drinks, but with something colder. Calculated. Henry met thousands of eyes across the bar, but these were different. The tallest of the 3, a lean figure wrapped in a dark cloak, tilted his head, barely perceptible, before slipping into the crowd. His companions followed, disappearing among patrons, but their eyes never left Henry. Instinct stirred, a gut feeling, honed from decades in battlefields and back alleys. He continued working, never breaking rhythm, but his mind raced. He forced himself to relax, to breathe, to recall what he had learned in his years away from violence. Suspicion didn't mean certainty. He had enemies once, but enemies had no patience for 5-year gaps. Still, when the bar emptied and the night deepened, Henry locked the doors with quiet efficiency. He stepped into the cold air of the alley, his breath misting in the dim station glow. The silence was the wrong kind of quiet, one that waited. Footsteps. Slow, measured. Henry exhaled, flexing his fingers. Not a coincidence. Mr. Carter, a voice purred from the shadows. Smooth, practiced. Not local. Henry turned, his face impassive. A figure emerged, alien, tall, his features sharp beneath the hood. He moved with the ease of a predator who knew his prey had nowhere to run. 2 more shadows unfolded behind him. Henry didn't answer. He'd learned long ago that words were wasted on the inevitable. The first strike came fast. A lunge, precise and silent. Henry twisted, deflecting the blow with a forearm, shifting his weight to counter. A second attacker swung wide. Henry ducked, driving his elbow into ribs before pivoting. They were good. Too good for hired thugs. Assassins, then. The third figure circled behind him, drawing a weapon. Henry turned just in time to catch the dull glow of a stun rod before it struck his ribs. Pain tore through him, sharp and electric. His muscles locked, his body collapsing despite his mind's refusal. The last thing he saw was the cold satisfaction on his attacker's face before darkness took him. Inside the cloaked ship, drifting just beyond the station scanners, Ex-Wyvor stood over the unconscious human, expression unreadable. The contract had been clear: eliminate Henry Carter and confirm the kill. Yet something about this job unsettled him. Vree, his second in command, tapped the display beside them, scanning Carter's vitals. He put up a fight, she murmured. For a bartender. Ex-Wyvor said nothing. Humans had a reputation, one the Galactic elite often ignored. Tenacious, unpredictable. Carter was no exception. He had studied the man's history before taking the contract. A former soldier, once highly decorated before vanishing from military records. That should have been enough of a warning. Still, he was just a man. And men bled. Prep the execution room, Ex-Wyvor ordered, his voice cool. Make it clean. No mess. Vree hesitated. No broadcast. Unnecessary. Ex-Wyvor's gaze lingered on their captive. Dead is dead. As his subordinates moved to obey, Ex-Wyvor turned away, missing the feint, pulsing red light on Henry Carter's wrist, an emergency signal sent into the void. A call to a ghost, a message to someone who would come. And when he did, there would be hell to pay. The moment the distress signal pulsed through his neural implant, Jason Carter knew something was wrong. The code was old, something his father had given him years ago, back when Jason was just a boy playing with wooden rifles and dreaming of war. It was a dead frequency, a relic of a time before he became a ghost in the Navy SEALs. His father had never used it, not once. Until now. Jason sat motionless inside his gunship's cockpit, eyes locked onto the flickering red light in his HUD. The message was short, automated, a single burst of data carrying only location coordinates and urgency. His father was in trouble. Adrenaline spiked in his veins, but he forced his breathing steady. He had learned discipline long ago, drilled into him through years of brutal training, covert missions, and the kind of warfare that never made the news. Rushing in without a plan got men killed. Jason wasn't in the habit of dying. With a flick of his fingers, he overrode his current mission protocol, redirecting the ship toward the coordinates. A warning flashed across his screen. Deviation unauthorized, but he ignored it. Orders meant nothing compared to blood. The ship's engines roared as he punched into faster-than-light travel. He didn't need to check the NAV computer to know where he was going. Orion's Rest. His father's bar. Memories surfaced unbidden. The smell of whiskey and old leather. His father's steady hands guiding his own on the grip of a sidearm, teaching him how to aim, how to breathe, how to end a fight before it began. Henry Carter had never raised his voice, never coddled, never lied about what it meant to survive. And now someone had taken him. Jason's jaw tightened. They had no idea what they had just done. The ship dropped out of FTL with a violent shudder, the distant space station looming in his viewport. Jason engaged the cloaking field, slipping undetected through the chaotic traffic of incoming and outgoing vessels. He didn't bother requesting docking clearance. He wasn't here for formalities. His boots hit metal as he descended from the gunship, moving with silent purpose through the station's grimy corridors. Orion's Rest was closed, its neon sign dark. That alone was a warning. His father never closed early. A quick scan of the security feeds confirmed what he already suspected. His father was gone. The footage showed him locking up, heading into the alley. Then the figures appeared, 3 of them, moving with trained precision. The attack was quick, efficient. Professionals. Assassins. Jason rewound the footage, pausing on their faces. Alien, cloaked. And there, etched into the armor of one of them, a symbol. His stomach twisted with recognition. The Void Reapers. A syndicate of killers for hire, known for taking contracts that paid in blood and silence. If they had taken Henry alive, it wasn't for long. Jason had seen their work before on battlefield corpses and in classified mission reports. The Reapers didn't believe in loose ends. His fingers flexed unconsciously. He needed to move fast. Tapping into the station's underground networks, he pushed out feelers. Credits changed hands. A few broken fingers earned him the information he needed. The Void Reaper's ship had left the station hours ago, destination unknown. But Jason didn't need a flight plan. He had their trajectory, and that was enough. Minutes later, he was back in his gunship, calculating an intercept course. The coordinates placed the Reaper's ship near an outlaw outpost, a haven for criminals who thrived in the lawless stretches of space. It was the kind of place where bodies disappeared, where a man like Henry Carter would be just another ghost swallowed by the void. Jason adjusted his weapons loadout, securing a combat knife to his belt alongside his sidearm and plasma rifle. He wasn't here for a firefight. He was here to end this. As the ship sped toward its target, he allowed himself a single moment of stillness. He closed his eyes, inhaled, exhaled. Then he opened them, and they were cold. The hunt had begun. The outpost drifted in the void, a jagged construct of steel and rusted ambition, orbiting the carcass of a dead moon. Jason had seen places like this before, way stations for criminals, black market dealers, and the kind of people who thrived in the absence of law. The Void Reapers had chosen their ground well. It wouldn't matter. His gunship remained cloaked as he maneuvered through the debris field, silent as a predator stalking prey. Docking scanners would detect nothing. Countermeasures ensured his presence remained a ghost's whisper in the system. He landed on a maintenance platform, slipping unseen into the outpost's underbelly. Moving through the station, Jason stayed in the shadows, his every step calculated. He wore dark tactical gear, weapons secured for silent kills. Information came easy when men feared pain, and the first mercenary he found proved loose-lipped after a broken wrist and a blade pressed to his throat. Henry Carter was alive for now. The Void Reapers had taken him to their ship, docked at the far end of the station. They planned to execute him soon. Jason left the mercenary unconscious, stepping over his body as he advanced. The station's corridors twisted like veins, the air thick with the scent of oil, metal, and desperation. He moved with practiced efficiency, neutralizing sentries before they could raise alarms. Each takedown was quick, methodical, silent bursts of suppressed plasma fire, the wet crunch of a snapped neck. The Reapers had no idea death had already arrived. He reached the docking bay, crouching in the rafters above. The ship loomed beneath him, matte black and armored, a hunter's vessel. 2 guards stood at the entrance, their posture relaxed. Amateurs. Jason dropped down behind them, striking like a viper. One fell with a knife buried in his throat. The other barely had time to gasp before a pistol round punched through his skull. He stepped over their bodies and entered the ship. Inside, the lights were dim, the air thrumming with the low hum of active systems. Jason moved through the corridors like a shadow, his pulse steady. The Reapers were spread out, unaware of the storm about to break. He found his father in a holding cell, wrists bound, a bruise darkening his jaw. Henry's eyes snapped up at the sound of Jason disabling the lock. "Took you long enough," Henry muttered, his voice dry but steady. Jason smirked. "Had to make an entrance." His father stood, shaking off stiffness. "They'll know we're here soon." "They'll be dead soon," Jason corrected. He handed Henry a weapon, a compact pistol with a fresh energy cell. His father took it without question. The soldier in him had never truly left. The ship trembled, a distant explosion. Jason's sabotage had begun working. Alarm klaxons blared as red lights flared along the walls. Footsteps pounded from deeper in the ship. The Reapers had realized too late they weren't the only killers on board. Jason moved first, stepping into the corridor as the first assassin rounded the corner. A quick burst from his rifle dropped the alien before he could react. Another charge from the side, blade flashing. Jason caught the strike with his forearm, twisted, and drove his own knife into the attacker's ribs. The Reaper gurgled and collapsed. Gunfire erupted as more poured in, but Jason was already moving, a whirlwind of precise violence. Henry covered his flank, his shots clean, efficient. They pushed forward, cutting through resistance like a scalpel through flesh. Vor emerged at the far end of the hall, eyes burning with fury. His hand flicked, activating a blade of crackling energy. "You should have stayed away," he snarled. Jason stepped forward, rolling his shoulders. "So should you." They clashed. Vor was fast, his strikes blinding, but Jason was faster. He dodged, countered, weaving through attacks with ruthless efficiency. Their blades met in a shower of sparks. Vor lunged. Jason sidestepped, driving his knife into the alien's side. The assassin staggered, choking on a breath, disbelief in his eyes. Jason twisted the blade, then pulled it free. Vor crumpled. Jason didn't spare him a second glance. He turned to his father. "Time to go." They sprinted for the exit as the ship's core detonated. Fire and wreckage consumed the Void Reaper's legacy. In the silence of open space, aboard Jason's gunship, Henry let out a slow breath. "I had it handled," he said. Jason smirked. "Sure you did." As the stars stretched before them, Henry clasped his son's shoulder. No words were needed. Jason simply set course for home.